this is Gregory with how I lost over 100 pounds and I've kept it off for 30 plus years, where there should be no hesitance in your weight loss and maintenance. Today we're going to continue this series, Confessions of an Obese Child, and talk about my father, the first of a two-part series. Now before we begin, if you need help with weight loss, contact me through the Clarity FM link found here in the episode notes. Also check out my website, which has a lot of articles and recipes, my podcasts, my books, and if you appreciate my content, please like this video right now, hit the notification button, and post a comment. That helps with the algorithm. And if you really appreciate my content, make a donation via the PayPal link. All right, my father. I mentioned my father in the first of the Confession series, Why Did I Become Fat? But for the next two episodes, we're going to flesh him out. And the reason is that my father was a very influential person in my life. A little backstory, as I mentioned, the 7 things you need to know about me episode. I am from Mexico, or my family's from Mexico. I was born here in Houston, Texas. But my father and my mother were immigrants from Mexico. My father went to medical school over there, and then he got a job in Houston and was there at that hospital for 40 years till he died about 14 years ago. And he was a larger than life character. I post the same picture because it's honestly the only picture I have of me when I'm fat, because when you're fat, you don't want a lot of pictures taken of you. And you can see my father in the picture. And my father was not like a classically handsome man, but man, he was charismatic. My other brother, we just did a video on, we used to jokingly call him the most interesting man in the world, those Dos Equis commercials, because my father was highly charismatic and well educated, very cultured, knew about opera, classical music, just history, everything. He was a Renaissance man, a dilettante, very erudite. Throughout his career, he ran various international organizations for the branch of medicine that he was in charge of. He wrote hundreds of articles, dozens of books, was very influential, very prestigious. And he's kind of like a Jekyll and Hyde for me, because the Jekyll was great memories of us watching soccer on television while he would fall asleep, him teaching me about opera and history, and he was my soccer coach for a little while before I got too fat. Go to the episode on my sports. And he used to take me to church, and he taught me about all the conspiracies about how the church was infiltrated by the Masons and all that fun stuff. And he would also take me to the chapel at our parish in the middle of the night to pray. And I just have a lot of good memories of him just being such an influencer in my life. He taught me how to drive. He used to always, because we would do cross-country trips, he'd be like, Gregory, you see these morons, they don't know how to drive. You pass in the left lane. You don't drive 55 miles an hour in the left lane. That's why you're in the right lane. You see these morons holding up traffic. I mean, he would just go and I would just laugh. I know, and I learned from him. But he was also a Hyde. I talk about in that first episode how he was a functional alcoholic. And I've talked about it before, like my family, my mother and my eldest brother would agree with that. My middle brother, the one I did an episode, would probably find that to be highly offensive. But the thing is, he wasn't around as much in the house. So I don't think he saw it as much. My father, when he would drink, would be a rager, and he would say pretty horrible things about me and my mother and my eldest brother. I think he didn't say it as much to my other brother because my other brother was perceived to be the perfect son. But I think my eldest brother and myself were kind of the recipients of quite a bit. So we just didn't know what we were going to get when he would come home because he was a functional alcoholic for sure. And maybe you can't even say he was an alcoholic, because the true definition of alcoholic is somebody whose personal lives or work lives are affected by it. And his work life was never affected by it. So he's more, I would say, alcohol dependent, but he was certainly under the influence. And when he would get home, if he had been drinking on the way home, we would know, because he would just be pretty horrific. And he would hide alcohol in different places in the car. We would find them all the time. Anytime we had alcohol in the house, my mother had to hide it because he would consume it very fast. And my mother was a very just traditional Mexican woman and just would take on the barrages. She would just take the barrages when he was in that way. And I think she kind of just viewed it as, well, this is who he is. I have to handle him with this when he's brilliant, but when he's also like this. And just took up the cross, as we say in the Catholic world. She offered it up. But it was difficult growing up with that because my mother was not nurturing. My father was a rager, but then he would just, in a flip of the dime, 20 minutes later, be like, hey, let's just go have ice cream. And, he'd just be very nice. And we're just like, you just told me I'm a horrible piece of crap. With more expletives than that. 2 seconds ago. It was just kind of like we would have this deer in the headlights. So it'd always be like walking on eggshells. So some of you can relate to this if you have some sort of addict in your life. And so I grew up kind of having this ambivalence toward my father in that I didn't know how to handle any of that. What I did know is I saw what alcohol did to him. And I mentioned that first episode, that his mother walked out on his father and him and his 2 brothers on his 3rd birthday. And I just think growing up, he might not remember that. Maybe his aunts or his dad told him that. But just imagine that kind of trauma. Like, you want to blame yourself. Like, why on my birthday? Why would you walk out? And, his father was an alcoholic too. And so I realized that I would never drink. And that's the sons of alcoholics. Kids of alcoholics go one of 2 ways away. I think they either just don't ever drink because they see what it does to people, or they're in denial and they drink to numb the pain and to be in an altered state, and then they're in denial, right? There's nothing wrong with it and so forth. But I definitely took the latter, and that I've still never been drunk in my life. That's not to say that I never drink. I will have an episode on how my eating and binging affected my relationship with my ex-wife, but one of the good things about her was that she didn't drink either. So I was with her for 20 years. So there was really no temptation to drink because neither of us drank. And since then, maybe I'll drink. I mean, it's always with somebody, and it's never when I'm driving. And maybe I have a drink of wine once a month at the most. And even with 1 glass, I feel it. And I like to be in control of my faculties. And I also realize that in my family, there's this kind of addictive tendency, right? And I think about like my binge eating past, and then I think about my father's propensity for the booze as well. And they're just two sides of a different coin. Anytime you turn to something to numb the pain, you turn to something to put you in an altered state because you're really trying to numb the pain. When I got later in life, when he was older, and I was in a period in my life where I would blame my parents, why'd you let me eat whatever I wanted, now I'm fat, da-da-da-da-da-da. And they're like, well, you always wanted the food, and I didn't know. I have very clear recollections of after my father and I going to the chapel at 3 a.m, we would go to the diner, and I would get 3 bagels with cream cheese and eat that at 4 a.m, and then still eat breakfast when I woke up. I remember he would take me to the local Mexican restaurant, and I would get 3 cheese enchiladas and beans and rice and 4 flour tortillas. I just remember this. So later in our life, though, when I lost the weight, I was probably in my 30s, and his health was failing him to a certain extent. I did have a talk with him, and I said, look, I'm sorry if I was a bad son in a lot of ways. I'm sorry for blaming you. I know you've gone through a lot. And he admitted to me that he has a drinking problem. It was just him and me. I think we were at an airport. I don't know why we were at an airport. Maybe we were getting on a plane. I don't remember. Maybe we were getting on a plane to go to Europe. I don't remember what it was, but he admitted, he teared up, he appreciated the apology. It's not like I was a wretched son or anything like that, but I think it was just good that we had this kind of one-on-one talk. And later when he passed away, and he passed away very quickly, had an aneurysm. I wasn't able to say goodbye to him before he slipped into a coma. It was good that I had that conversation with him, because there's a lot of people who don't have those conversations with their parents before they die. So now that it's been 14 years, I pray for his soul, because that's what we Catholics do. We pray for the dead. And I focus on the good memories, and I focus on the things that he bestowed upon me, the gifts that he gave me. A lot of my talents that I have because of my father. And most of my memories, if not all of them, are good memories. And I have a lot of sympathy toward him and toward his childhood and why it resulted in the way he was. And I look at it this way too. So we have to address the intergenerational trauma that runs through all of our families. And the first step is identifying it, like his trauma, his grandfather or my grandfather's trauma. They were all drinkers. Why are they drinkers? It's the same thing. Why do we have a disordered relationship with food? Why do people have a disordered relationship with alcohol? So it's identifying that so I don't pass it on to my children. And that's the key with the intergenerational trauma. But either way, rest in peace. Poppy, I love you. Take care. Guys, post in the comments. Let me know if you can relate to what it was like to grow up with a father or mother who was like that. Hit the notification, subscribe, and share button. Until next time, take care. God bless and pray.